Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for attending this month's 30-Minute Thursday. My name is Kim Corso, and today we'll be taking you through the Genesys Operations Bridge, specific emphasis on customer workflows. So since we got together last time, I think it was April 2020, in this environment, we've seen such a high demand for this product. We've actually have about 5 customers that are either installed or in the process of being installed, with several customers that are in the serious evaluation phase. So we thought, because of the high demand, we would get back in front of everyone and just take you through the product again. And the good thing is now we have some customers that are providing their input on their experience before they had the Operations Bridge and then their experience afterwards. So when you go to either the February session or even probably the April session, we always like to kick things off with the goals of the Operations Bridge to give you an appreciation of what we try to achieve. The first is being able to improve service quality. What I mean by that is making sure that the services that are operational are performing as best they can and that are highly available. And then the secondary one is being able to reduce the costs that are associated with maintaining those services. So this means, what can we do with the software to reduce the amount of time it takes to identify faults, where they're located, and so that you can quickly repair them. It also means that we're really trying to emphasize focusing on services, the impact of service, as opposed to individual events. And that's important given the fact that many of you are operating with limited people managing the overarching network, including the radio system. So anything that we can do to not only help you identify the fault quicker, but help you prioritize your workforce is going to be key in order for you to achieve even the first goal of improving the service quality. So what I'm going to do is toggle back and forth between the workflows that we've learned thus far into the demo so you can get an appreciation for some of the functionality. The first one is going to be able to increase, by using the Ops Bridge, you're able to increase the information or access to the information. What we learned is that oftentimes system administrators have an uneven ratio between those that are in the field, those field technicians, or their own administrators themselves accessing the information through the UEM workstations. In one instance, maybe you have 2 UEM workstations in one zone and 2 in another zone. And in order to get information from those workstations, you have to actually log into them remotely. So if you can imagine, if you have only 4, but yet you have, say, 10 field techs and 6 administrators, there's that unevenness. So not everybody's going to be able to get access to the information at the time that they need it. So the one way in which the Ops Bridge can assist is the fact that it's browser delivered. So you can provide all 16 in that example, all 16 of those individuals with user IDs and passwords, and perhaps even, specific screens that they can access, that they can log in wherever they're at, whenever they're at, and likely on whatever device that they need, so that you don't have to worry about if, say, 5 others are in the tool, you still can get access to it or log into it. And I think one of the main advantages is the fact that if, in addition to the radio system, one of the things that Operations Bridge allows is that you can manage all the devices that are related to that overarching network. So it's the radio system, it can be data, it can be voice loggers, it can be your microwave links, etc., and all the incidents all of the alarms, I should say, that are coming in from either of those pieces of equipment are pulled together in what we refer to as a single pane of glass. So I'm going to go in and just give you an idea and also show you some of the new stuff that has been added. So what you're seeing here is the event browser. So for those who have seen the Operations Bridge before, this may not look completely foreign, just like the screen may look just a little slightly different. But on the left-hand side, you can see all of the pieces of equipment that are, again, like I referred to, is brought together in this single pane of glass. So you have your console, your core, your remote sites. Within your remote sites, you have all your radio sites, and then all the radio equipment. Let me blow this out a little bit. All the radio equipment, your repeaters, your controllers, etc. You have your environmentals, so in this case, MOSCAD, and then you have your links, your transmissions. So again, all the alarm information from this entire overarching network is being pulled into this event browser. Now, a couple of new things that we've added to it as well is in the area of annotation. So as these events come in, now you have the ability to click on the event, right-click on it, and then add an annotation saying, maybe I want to say that this has been assigned to me. So you can write different notes, hit create, and then if someone else were to log in and add an annotation because they too are either backing up the field tech that's working on it or what have you, can add another note, and then this can uptick to 2, 3, 4, and so on. Another popular thing in the spirit of being able to reduce the amount of clutter or the information that's probably not as useful in terms of resolving the issue is duplicate count. So you can see here in this Dallas, the link has gone down, and it generated, in addition to this particular event in the event browser, it generated 2,881 duplicate events. Well, those duplicate events are just telling you the same thing. So rather than show them in the event browser, getting more frustrated because you have to scroll through lines and lines of data, we just suppress that count to let you know that that's how many alarms were suppressed. And then the other new one is state. So kind of a similar concept to annotation, but state will also give notification to anyone logging in where that particular incident is in terms of its resolution life cycle. So if you right-click on it, you can see that we have a couple of options. We can say, I'm working on it, in which case it'll change it to in progress. We could also switch it to close, which then it will, go away, indicating that issue has been resolved. So another option on where you can add notes. And then the last one I'll talk about is age. I don't believe this was in the previous software, but in addition to identifying the time received, it'll also show you how long that particular alarm has been unresolved. So you may want to sort this just to say how many chances are you're not going to have something for 243 days that you haven't identified something. This is a demo, but it'll at least give you an idea of which ones have been aged the longest, and perhaps that also could give you an indication of what you need to prioritize. Although I would argue the site status, which we'll talk about in a second, is probably a better way to prioritize your workflow. Now, oftentimes too, customers may have a work ticket system that they're utilizing. So this can interface with that work ticket incident. And as events come in, maybe there's a specific amount of time that event has been aged, in which case it then triggers a ticket or a case that gets created in that work ticket system. And a lot of the notations and statuses and whatnot may be entered there rather than here. But the communication can work both ways. So whether you update the ops bridge, or whether you update your work ticket system, both systems are going to be updated. And we've also seen some customers who will actually add a column right next to the severity level with the work ticket case. So not only do you have information about where it's located and on what device, but you also can identify that a ticket has been created. All right, so that's some of the newer items. So the next one is definitely an advantage to the operations bridge in the fact that we really do try to focus on allocating time to resolving incidents or issues as opposed to researching what they look like. So I know many of you are probably very familiar with this circumstance for those that are tracking device alarms. But as a storm would come through and you get flooded with a ton of email notifications and or text notifications, but it doesn't tell you exactly what device or where it's located. You just get a bunch of IP addresses. But if you know what those IP addresses are linked to, that's great, but you may not. So you have to take time to figure out that. But also, it doesn't necessarily get you to the root cause. You may get an alarm for every single thing. If it's like if you lost trunking, and you get an alarm for that you lost your link, but you also get an alarm for all of the other repeaters or base stations on that system that also have failed. But you know that the root cause in that circumstance would be that you lost trunking. So rather than getting all those individual emails or text notifications that you have to sift through, they would actually have to go to the actual site to figure out what the issue is, as opposed to rely on the notification. So what the operations bridge allows is the ability to leverage event correlation rules. So it will tell you that, hey, if if an incident came in on this device or this microwave link, how does that then dovetail to other devices that it's correlated with? So in the event browser, rather than getting all of those events, you would just get the fact that you lost trunking or you lost wide area trunking. And I'll show you that we don't remove those, what we refer to as symptomatic events. We just suppress them. And in the event browser, you only see the main issue. We've seen customers too, where what's good with this in terms of getting flooded with emails is that you would only get one email and or one text message. And that one email can even be sent directly to a specific technician or a system administrator to start the troubleshooting work, or even work with a specific vendor if they needed to. And or if you needed for time sensitive issues, you could have that sent, a text sent specifically to that technician. And then the second thing is, like I talked about, being able to integrate with work ticket solutions, is the fact that if a site were to go down, you could generate the case or the work ticket directly to a specific group, again, who can then work with whomever that approved vendor is to get the job completed. So let's go back into the demo. Okay, so if you see here, you have a couple of critical events. Let me just sort them. Some of which they have this little icon and some that do not. So in this case, this means that there's a correlated event. So what you're seeing here is the root cause. So if I click on it and then go into this little notepad here, there's a lot of information about the event, but down here in related events, you're going to see all of the suppressed events that were attributed to this overall root cause. So again, we don't remove them, we just suppress them out of the main view, so that all you're looking at is the main issue. But like I mentioned earlier before, what I said before is that we try to focus less on events and more on site status. So this will give you an indication of what sites are in jeopardy. Now, I just so happen to take the greens out, but you could just as easily filter this view. And if I go back, we saw that Austin had lost trunking status. So if I go into site status, I see in Austin, by clicking on these three dots, this is also new to the software, is we can see here that we've lost trunking availability. And as a result, we also lost channel capacity. So that would deem this as a critical event and something that should be focused on. But with Midland, we lost channel capacity. You saw that a base repeater went out, but we still have the ability to trunk. So it's in a warning status. So if I had to focus all of my, my workflow or my employees to what should I work on first? Yes, it's going to show that both of these events had something critical in nature in the event browser because some sort of device went down. But Austin's the one I really need to focus on because no one can communicate on that system. So this part's not necessarily new to the software, but the fact that we now can also monitor the different, what we refer to as KPIs or key performance indicators for that site to give you an indication of what specifically is gone on that needs to be resolved. Okay, the third one is also important. What we learned is that when storms, for example, come through, that sometimes alarms get silenced due to the weather or the delays, they get delayed in terms of their notifications. So they leverage the operations bridge to be able to see impacts to service or site services or the service health in real time, not like I say in the rear view. So they can, as these storms are coming through, if they have even a weather layer on our geographic map, they can see, hey, the storm is coming through, and maybe it helps them be able to coordinate their response better as the storm cells are moving in and then therefore out. But they're seeing those impacts to those sites in real time. We also have the ability to show whether or not microwave links between sites are healthy, or otherwise known as otherwise green, or if they're failed, which is red. So we can show you what that looks like as well. At least we'll show you the links in the adjacency sites, but you could also add, microwave failures too. So you're seeing not only impact to the site health itself and all the devices that are resulted on that site, but also the links between the sites too. So what you're seeing here are all of the sites that we're monitoring. You have a few of these that are in critical status, one that's in a minor and major status, and one that's in warning. Everything else is green. So by clicking on each individual site, and this isn't necessarily new to the software per se, you're going to see that we've lost trunking availability, we've lost our channel capacity, our grade of service has taken a hit, et cetera, and then what that history is. We also have the ability to show other metrics, like in terms of its affiliation. So if you need to dive deeper into who's being impacted by that, et cetera. Utilization, if you have agencies that are operating on the site, what their allocation is, et cetera. So that's consistent with the previous versions of software. What's new, though, is these little upticks, if you will, or these changes. So this data updates every 5 minutes. So this is going to show you the percentage change from the last update and the direction in which it's gone. So in this case, it's gone up 1%. This case, it's gone down 6%. So this is helpful so you can have some point of reference to say, okay, I know where this figure is, but is it trending? Is it going in the wrong direction, or is it going in the right direction? Maybe even tried to do a fix and you wanted to see if perhaps the fix is actually working. So that is something that is new to the software too. And then in terms of the links itself, what you're looking at here are the adjacent sites. So in this case, if I had a unit that was out here, they may have some issues with their coverage until they started to connect to the Waco site, for example, because this Bryan site is out. But it's good to know, at least from a roaming perspective, as I'm moving from one site tower to another site tower, where my adjacencies are. The microwave link piece of it is something that is not part of the actual demo, but if their link between, say, this and this were broken, this line would be red. This one may be just impaired. This would obviously be green. So you're able to not only track site adjacencies, but you're also able to then check the microwave links too. And again, all of this is happening in real time. Okay, and the last one I'm going to talk about is providing proper downtime awareness. So we learned that oftentimes field techs are backing up each other on tower sites during a planned maintenance. They also have office locations that are likely in different areas, so they're not able to stay in regular contact with each other. So as sites are being taken down for that maintenance, you can leverage the actual site, the geographic site, or the geographic map, I should say, that I just showed, to be able to, not only notify individuals that a site's going to be worked on, but also so that all the field techs are able to stay connected and know what's going on at all times. They can actually see sites that are in the maintenance arena. Also, what's cool is that once the field techs are working on it, they can decide or elect to have those alarms and text messages or emails or any sort of notifications suppressed during the maintenance time period. Sometimes some may want the alarms to come through so they can test things as they're working on them, but that is one option that we've seen customers take advantage of, is that they remove or suppress those things so they're not flooded with information as they're trying to actually fix things. So in here, we have coverage options. So I'm just going to turn a coverage map on. But if I knew that I wanted to, that this was an incident that I needed to fix, or maybe this was a planned downtime, I could right click on it and go ahead and simulate what that downtime would be, or maybe I just want to elect in some sort of rules that this site's being worked on to notify everyone else. There's also notifications in the system overview summary that you could add here if you said, hey, we're doing planned downtime on, the Waco Tower or the Austin Tower, or whatever the case may be. So there's a couple options there too. And this is not necessarily related to planned downtime, but it's a good way to just keep everyone up to speed and notified. Is if I were to look at all of the individual sites from like even a utilization standpoint, or maybe you do have an area with where the downtime is going to occur. You could click on this, highlight the sites, the top 10s. I know one customer has top 5, and this would leave this up. So you always know, say, imagine you have so many different sites that are on your map. You will always have those that are in the top 10 or top 5 highlighted. So you could quickly view, in this case, which sites are being utilized the most. So some of that stuff that I just talked about is new, but I hope that by looking at those 4 individual workflows in terms of being able to access information, being able to correlate or identify root cause so you can get to issues quicker. The next one, by being able to identify when the specific downtime is, or understanding in real time the service health. Those are all things that customers are utilizing today and benefiting from to just, again, improve their service quality and reduce the costs that are associated with those services. So I think we have some time. We have about 7 minutes or so. So if there's any questions that have come through, please feel free right now to add them into the chat window. Or if something resonates with you after the fact, certainly we can address it at that time. And I will go ahead and leave our contact information up here, in the case you need to reach out to anybody, and also a plug for our next session, which is Thursday, November 11th. So I will leave this up for a few and just see if there's any questions that have come through. Okay, I don't see that there's anything that's come through, so perhaps you just are letting this soak in, which is great. Well, with that then, if there's no other questions, then please do reach out if you need anything from us, whether it's Operations Bridge related or otherwise. And again, this will be up on our webinar library shortly. And I also encourage you to look at our February 2020 and April 2020 session. And with that, I thank you so much for your time, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care.